Neela sat alone in her small scout ship, watching the endless darkness of space through the old, cracked window. She had been watching for 300 cycles now. Not her alone, of course. Her grandmother had watched before her, and her grandmother's mother before that. The Villari had been running for a very long time. She remembered the stories. Once, her people had a home. A beautiful world with silver oceans and purple skies. But that was before the Hollow came. The machines with no mercy. The hunters who never stopped. Now the Villari lived in ships. Old, tired ships that broke down a little more each day. Neela checked her instruments for the 100th time. Her job was simple. Fly ahead of the fleet. Look for danger. Look for food. Look for anything that might help her dying people. She rarely found anything good. But today, something was different. A signal appeared on her screen. It was messy and loud, full of strange patterns she had never seen before. Music, voices, laughter, the sounds crashed into each other like waves in a storm. It was chaos. It was beautiful. Neela's hands trembled as she recorded the signal. This was not hollow. The machines were cold and silent. This was something alive. Something new? She sent a message back to the fleet. Elder Quarren received her report in the great hall of the lead ship. He was old, even by Villari standards. His skin had turned pale blue with age, and his 4 eyes were tired. He had seen too many of his people die. He had made too many hard choices. It could be a trap, said one of the council members. The Hollow are clever. They could be using bait. Or it could be salvation, said another. Quarren listened to them argue. He looked at the data on his screen. The signal came from a small ship. Very small. It was made of rough metals and simple designs. Whoever built it was not advanced. But they were definitely real. We are dying, Quarren said quietly. The council fell silent. Our food machines are failing. Our medicine is gone. We have perhaps 30 days before the children start to starve. He stood slowly, his old bones aching. I will not let fear kill us faster than hunger. Send Neela to make contact. Neela received her orders with a mix of excitement and terror. She had never met another species before. None of the Villari had. In all their centuries of running, they had found only empty worlds and dead civilizations. The galaxy seemed like a lonely graveyard. She flew toward the signal for 6 hours. The strange ship grew larger on her screen. It was ugly by Villari standards. Sharp corners and harsh angles. No grace at all. But lights glowed in its windows, and heat poured from its engines. It was alive. Neela opened a communication channel. She sent a simple greeting in the old language of peace. She waited. The response came quickly. It was not in any language she knew. But her translator worked hard, and soon words formed on her screen.
Hello there.
This is Captain Junho of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. We picked up your approach on our sensors. You look like you've been traveling a long time. Is everything okay? Do you need help? Neela read the message 3 times. She did not understand. Where was the threat? Where was the demand? Where was the negotiation for resources? This captain, this Junho, had simply asked if she needed help, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. She looked at the ship again. It was small, much smaller than even her little scout vessel. How could such a tiny thing survive in the darkness of space? What kind of creatures lived inside? I represent the Villari refugee fleet, Neela sent back. We are peaceful. We have been traveling for many generations. Our situation is difficult. Minutes passed. Then another message arrived. Difficult sounds like it might be an understatement. Look, I don't know who you are or where you're from, but if you need food, medicine, or repairs, we can try to help. Why don't you come aboard and we can talk? I promise we don't bite. Well, Sergeant Minho might look scary, but he's actually very friendly. Neela felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. Hope. She had not felt hope in a very long time. She sent a message to Elder Quarren, describing the contact. She asked for permission to board the alien vessel. The council debated for an hour, but in the end, Quarren gave his approval. They had nothing left to lose. Neela guided her ship toward the human vessel. A small door opened in its side, revealing a lit chamber. She docked carefully, her heart's beating fast. The door of her ship opened with a hiss. Standing on the other side was the strangest creature she had ever seen. It was short, barely reaching her chest. It had only 2 eyes, both a warm brown color. Its skin was a soft tan, and its black hair was cut short. It wore a simple uniform and a smile that seemed to take up half its face. "Welcome aboard," said the creature. "I'm Captain Junho. You must be tired. Let's get you something to eat, and you can tell me about your people." Neela stared at him. In all the stories her grandmother had told, in all the histories of the Villerie, no one had ever described a moment like this. A stranger in the void, offering food and kindness without asking for anything in return. "Why?" she asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why would you help us? You do not know us." Captain Junho tilted his head, as if the question confused him. "Because you need help," he said simply. "Isn't that reason enough?" Neela did not have an answer. But as she followed the small, strange creature into his ship, she began to wonder if perhaps the universe was not as empty and cold as she had believed. Perhaps, after 300 cycles of darkness, de Villerie had finally found a light. Elder Quarine had lived for over 900 cycles. He had seen empires rise and fall across distant stars. He had watched his own world burn. He had led his people through the endless dark for generations. He thought he understood the universe, but walking through the narrow corridors of the human ship, he realized he understood nothing at all. The vessel was small and crowded. Pipes ran along the ceiling. Wires hung from the walls. Everything was loud and busy and alive. Human crew members rushed past him, nodding politely, sometimes stopping to stare at him with wide, curious eyes. They were so young, so impossibly young. "Your captain," Quarren said to the woman walking beside him. "How old is he?" Lieutenant Yuna smiled. She was a calm woman, with steady eyes and dark hair pulled back in a tight knot. "Captain Junho, he's 42. Quite experienced for his age." Quarren felt his heart sink. 42. He had furniture older than that. How could such young creatures possibly survive in a universe filled with predators like the Hollow? Yuna led him to a small room where Captain Junho waited with 2 other humans. One was a tall man with gentle eyes and careful hands. The other was a young woman with oil stains on her clothes and a bright smile. "Elder Quarren, welcome," Junho said, standing up. "This is Dr. Taiho, our medical officer, and this is Engineer Hannah. Please, sit down." Quarren lowered himself into a chair that was far too small for his long body. The other members of his delegation stood behind him, watching the humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. "We have scanned your fleet," Junho continued. His voice was soft but serious. "We see over 200 ships, but many of them are damaged. Your power levels are low. Your food production seems to be failing." Paused. "How long have your people been running?" 300 cycles, Quarren said. "Since the Hollow destroyed our world, the humans exchanged looks." Quarren saw something pass between them. Not fear. Something else. Something like anger. "The Hollow," Junho repeated. "Tell me about them." Quarren told them everything. The machines that came from nowhere. The weapons that could crack planets. The hunters that never stopped, never tired, never showed mercy. He told them about the billions of Villerie who had died. About the desperate escape. About the endless running. When he finished, the room was silent. Dr. Taiho spoke first. His voice was quiet and kind. "Elder Quarren, with your permission, I would like to examine some of your people. From our scans, it appears many of them are suffering from malnutrition. We may be able to help." Quarren stared at him. "You would share your food with strangers?" "We have enough," Taiho said simply. "And no one should go hungry if we can prevent it." Before Quarren could respond, Engineer Hannah leaned forward. "I looked at the data on your food synthesizers. They're beautiful machines, really elegant design. But some of the core components are failing. I think I can fix them. Would you let me try?" You would repair our ships? Corrin asked. What do you want in return? Hannah looked confused. In return? I just want to help. It's a good puzzle, and your people are hungry. Corrin looked at Captain Junho. The young human met his gaze steadily. I do not understand your species, Corrin admitted. You are small. You are young. You live such short lives, yet you offer us everything and ask for nothing. What are you? Junho smiled. It was a warm smile, full of something Corrin could not name. We're just people, he said, and people help each other. That's what we believe anyway. So over the next several hours, Corrin watched the humans work. Dr. Taiho set up a medical station and began treating the sickest Villari refugees. He was patient and gentle, explaining everything he did. Engineer Hannah dove into the broken machinery with a joy that surprised everyone. She hummed while she worked. Talking to the machines as if they were old friends, Lieutenant Yuna organized the distribution of emergency food supplies. She was efficient and fair, making sure the youngest and weakest Villari received care first. Sergeant Minho, a large man with a scarred face and kind eyes, helped carry supplies and made the children laugh with silly faces. Corrin sat in the corner, watching it all. He felt like he was dreaming. A young Villari approached him. It was Scout Neela, the one who had first found the humans. Elder, she said softly. Do you see this? I see it, Corrin replied. I do not believe it, but I see it. They are so strange, Neela said. So loud and messy and emotional. But they are also... She struggled to find the word. Good. They are simply good. Corrin nodded slowly. Perhaps the universe was not as cruel as he had believed. Perhaps there were still lights in the darkness. Then the alarms began to scream. Every human in the room stopped moving. Their faces changed instantly. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something hard and focused. Junho pressed a device on his wrist. Report, voice crackled through. 3 hollow warships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're heading straight for the refugee fleet. ETA 20 minutes. Corrin felt his old heart stop. The hollow. They had found them again. After all this time, after all this running, the hunters had caught up. It was over. He turned to Junho, ready to say goodbye. Ready to thank him for the brief kindness before the end. But Junho was not looking at him. He was looking at his crew, and his eyes were on fire. Battle stations, Junho said. His voice was calm but filled with steel. All hands, prepare for combat, Captain, Corrin said desperately. You cannot fight the hollow. No one can. You must run. Save yourselves. Junho looked at him. The young human smiled, and in that smile, Corrin saw something he had never seen before. Not madness. Not foolishness. Something else. Something ancient and fierce, Elder Corrin, Junho said. You and your people are under our protection now, and humans do not abandon the people they protect. He turned to his crew. Let's show these machines what we're made of. The tiny ship roared to life, and Corrin realized with growing wonder that he had completely underestimated these fragile, short-lived, impossible creatures. The hollow warships were beautiful in the worst way possible. They moved through space like silver ghosts, their hulls smooth and perfect, their weapons glowing with cold light. They did not speak. They did not warn. They simply came to kill. Corrin watched them approach. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, his people were already dying in his mind. He could see the future clearly. The hollow would tear through the refugee fleet like knives through paper. The last of the Villari would burn in the void. 300 cycles of running would end in fire and silence. Then the human ship moved. It was not a retreat. The horizon's edge flew directly toward the hollow warships, placing itself between the hunters and the helpless fleet. One tiny vessel against 3 giants? What are you doing? Corrin shouted. This is madness. You will die. Captain Junho sat in his command chair, his eyes fixed on the enemy. He did not look afraid. He looked focused, alive, almost happy.
How?
Lieutenant Yuna, he said calmly. Begin attack pattern Delta. Let's wake them up. Yuna's fingers flew across her controls. The ship shook as weapons fired. Bright beams of energy struck the lead holoship, burning marks into its perfect hull. The machines paused. They actually paused. In all of Quarren's long life, he had never seen the holo hesitate. They were calculating, confused. The small, primitive vessel was attacking them instead of running. It did not match their predictions. "You're confused," Junho said with a grin. "Good. Confused enemies make mistakes. Hannah, how are my engines?" Engineer Hannah's voice crackled through the speaker. She was somewhere deep in the ship, surrounded by machinery. "Running hot, Captain. Really hot. But I can give you 30% more speed if you need it. Just don't ask me how."
"I never ask how."
"Just keep us flying." The battle began in earnest. The holoships opened fire, and the void lit up with deadly energy. But the horizon's edge danced between the beams like a leaf in a storm. It was impossible. The ship was old and small and slow, but the humans flew it like it was part of their own bodies. Quarren watched Yuna work. Her face was calm, her movements precise. She predicted where the enemy would fire and moved before they pulled the trigger. When Quarren asked how she could do this, she simply said, "Experience. The holo are machines. Machines follow patterns. Humans don't." The ship took hits. Alarms screamed. Crew members shouted damage reports. But no one panicked. No one fled. They simply fixed what was broken and kept fighting. Then Sergeant Minho did something insane. "Captain," he said over the communicator, "I've got an idea. The lead ship's shields are weakest near the engineering section. If I take a boarding team over there, we might be able to disable their weapons from the inside. You want to board a holo vessel?" Junho asked. He did not sound surprised. He sounded like he was considering it. "Yes, sir. No organic has ever survived inside a holo ship. Then I'll be the first." There was a long pause. Quarren waited for Junho to refuse. Any sane commander would refuse. This was suicide. "Take 4 of your best," Junho said. "You have 15 minutes. Don't die." "I'll do my best, sir." Quarren grabbed Junho's arm. "You cannot send them. The holo ships are filled with killing machines. They will be torn apart." Junho looked at him with those strange, warm, terrible human eyes. Minho knows the risk. He volunteers anyway. That's who he is. That's who we all are. Small shuttle launched from the horizon's edge. It flew straight toward the lead holo warship, dodging fire, spinning through explosions. It crashed into the enemy hull and burned its way inside. For 10 minutes, there was silence. Quarren prayed to gods he had stopped believing in long ago. The holoships continued their attack. The horizon's edge continued to dance. More alarms. More damage. A fire broke out on Deck 3. A power line exploded on Deck 7. Then Minho's voice came through, broken and tired but alive. "Mission complete. Their forward weapons are offline. Get us out of here, Captain. Things are getting hot." Shuttle emerged from the holoship seconds before a massive explosion tore through its front section. The machine vessel spun out of control, crashing into its neighbor. Both ships broke apart in a storm of fire and metal. One holo ship remained. It looked at the tiny human vessel. It calculated the odds. Then it turned and ran. The holo ran. Quarren could not breathe. In 900 cycles, he had never seen the holo retreat. They did not know how. They did not know fear. But something about these humans, these impossible, reckless, wonderful creatures, had taught them. The bridge of the horizon's edge was quiet. Then someone laughed. Then someone else. Soon the whole crew was cheering, hugging each other, crying with relief and joy. Sergeant Minho returned to the ship covered in oil and blood. He was limping badly. 2 of his team had to be carried to medical, but they were alive. All of them were alive. Quarren approached him slowly. "How?" he asked. "How did you survive in there?" Minho shrugged. His face was tired, but his eyes sparkled. "Honestly, I didn't think about surviving. I just thought about protecting the people who needed me. Everything else was details." Quarren looked around the damaged bridge. Fires smoked in corners. Wires hung from broken panels. Wounded crew members leaned against walls. The humans had paid a terrible price for this victory, but they had won. Against all logic, against all history, they had won. Captain Junho walked over to Quarren. He looked exhausted. There was blood on his uniform from helping carry the wounded, but he was smiling. "It's round one," he said. "They'll send more. They always send more. But now they know something important." "What is that?" Quarren asked. Junho's smile widened. "They know that someone in this galaxy is willing to fight back. And that changes everything." Quarren looked at this young, fragile, magnificent creature. And for the first time in 300 cycles, he began to believe that maybe, just maybe, running was not the only option. Maybe it was time to stand. The celebration did not last long. By morning, the true cost of victory became clear. 12 human crew members had died in the battle. 12 lives cut short to protect strangers they had never met. The survivors gathered in the cargo bay, standing in silence as Captain Junho read each name aloud. Quarren stood in the back, watching. The Villari did not understand death the way humans did. His people lived so long that losing someone felt like losing a mountain or an ocean. Something eternal, suddenly gone. But humans lived such short lives. Every death was a theft. Every loss was a wound. Yet they did not weep with despair. They wept with love. They told stories about their fallen friends. They laughed at old memories. They held each other and promised to remember. After the ceremony, Junho found Quarren standing alone by a window, staring at the stars. "You did not have to do this," Quarren said quietly. "Those 12 people, they died for us. We are strangers to you. Why would you sacrifice so much?" Junho was silent for a moment. His face was pale and tired. He had not slept since the battle. "When I was young," he said finally, "my grandmother told me a story. She said that long ago humans used to fight each other constantly. Wars over land. Wars over resources. Wars over ideas. Millions died. The world almost ended several times." He paused. "But slowly we learned. We learned that the only way to survive was to help each other, to see strangers as neighbors, to treat every life as precious." He turned to face Quarren. "We're not perfect. We still make mistakes, but we try. We try to be better than we were. And when we see someone in trouble, we don't ask if they deserve help. We just help." Quarren felt something shift in his old heart. For 900 cycles, he had believed that survival required isolation. That trust was weakness. That kindness was a luxury the universe could not afford. But here was proof that he was wrong. Here was a species that had built its entire identity on helping others. And they were alive. They were thriving. They were strong. "You humble me, Captain," Quarren said softly. "I have lived 900 cycles and learned less than you have in 40, Junho smiled. "You kept your people alive for 300 cycles against impossible odds. That takes more strength than you know." In the days that followed, the humans and Villare worked together to repair both fleets. Engineer Hannah moved between ships like a force of nature, fixing machines that Villare engineers had given up on. Dr. Taiho trained Villare healers in human medicine. Lieutenant Yuna taught Villare scouts how to fly in combat formations. Slowly, something beautiful began to grow. Friendship, trust, hope. Scout Neela spent most of her time with the humans. She was fascinated by everything about them. Their music, which was loud and strange and somehow perfect. Their food, which was spicy and colorful and made her tongue burn in wonderful ways. Their games, which involved throwing balls and chasing each other and laughing until they could not breathe. "You are so strange," she told Sergeant Minho one evening. He was teaching her a card game called poker. She was losing badly. "You live such short lives. Yet you spend so much time playing. Are you not worried about wasting your days?" Minho dealt another hand. His scarred face creased into a smile. "That's exactly why we play," he said. "We don't have forever. So we have to find joy wherever we can. Every good moment counts. Every laugh matters." Neela thought about this for a long time. The Valari had forgotten how to laugh. Somewhere in those 300 cycles of running, they had lost the ability to enjoy the present. They only thought about survival. They only planned for disaster. But the humans lived in each moment like it was a gift. They knew they could die tomorrow. And that knowledge made them more alive, not less. "I want to learn," Neela said suddenly. "I want to learn how to be like you." Minho's smile widened. "Stick with me, kid. I'll teach you everything I know." On the 5th day after the battle, the long-range sensors detected something terrible. Kurin was in the conference room when Lieutenant Yuna delivered the news. Her face was calm, but her eyes were dark. "A hollow armada," she said. "At least 40 ships. They'll be here in 48 hours. The room fell silent. 40 ships. Against one damaged human vessel and a fleet of unarmed refugees. There is no way to win. No way to survive. The Valari Council members began to argue. Some wanted to flee immediately, scatter into the void and hope the hollow would not follow. Others wanted to surrender, to beg for mercy that would never come. Captain Junho raised his hand. The room fell quiet. "We will not run," he said. "And we will not surrender." "Then what?" Quarren asked. His voice was heavy with despair. "What can we possibly do against such force?" Junho looked around the room. At his crew, at the Valari, at Neela and Minho sitting side by side, at Quarren, the old leader who had carried his people through centuries of darkness. "We fight," Junho said simply. "Not because we can win, but because giving up is not who we are. And maybe if we're clever enough and brave enough, we can find a way." Engineer Hannah leaned forward, her eyes bright with ideas. "I've been looking at the Valari star charts. There's an asteroid field about 2 hours from here, dense, full of metals. If we could lure the hollow in there." She trailed off, her mind racing. "You're thinking of a trap," Yuna said. "I'm thinking of an opportunity." For the next 3 hours, they planned. Humans and Valari together, mixing ancient knowledge with human creativity. Slowly, a desperate, impossible idea began to take shape. It was not a plan for victory. It was a plan for survival. A plan that required sacrifice and courage and a little bit of luck. But it was hope. And hope, Quarren was learning, was what humans did best. As the meeting ended, Junho pulled Quarren aside. "Whatever happens," the young captain said, "I want you to know something. Meeting your people has been the greatest honor of my life. Whatever comes next, I'm glad we found each other in the dark." Quarren looked at this impossible human, this fragile, brave, wonderful creature who had changed everything. "So am I," Quarren said. And he meant it with all 4 of his old hearts. The asteroid field stretched across the void like a graveyard of broken worlds. Massive rocks tumbled slowly through the darkness, crashing into each other, breaking apart, reforming. It was beautiful and deadly, and Engineer Hannah loved it immediately. "This is perfect," she said, her eyes scanning the data. "We hide fusion charges in the largest asteroids. When the hollow fleet enters the field, we trigger them. The explosions will create a chain reaction. The whole field becomes a weapon. Someone has to stay behind," Lieutenant Yunus said quietly. "Someone has to act as bait. Draw the hollow into the trap and trigger it at exactly the right moment." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Whoever stayed behind would be in the heart of the explosion. Escape would be nearly impossible. Captain Junho stood up. "I'll do it. The horizon's edge will be the bait." "Captain, no." Yuna's voice cracked. "We can find another way. There is no other way." Gunho looked at his crew. His family. "You all know what's at stake. The Valari fleet needs time to escape. If we can destroy even half the Hollow Armada, they'll have a chance. That's worth everything." Quarren stepped forward. His old body trembled, but his voice was steady. "Then we will stay with you." Junho turned to him surprised. "Elder, your people have been running for 300 cycles. This is your chance to finally escape, leave you to die alone." Quarren shook his head slowly. "No, for centuries we ran from every fight. We abandoned every ally. We survived, but we lost something important. We lost our courage. We lost our honor. He placed his hand on Junho's shoulder. Today, we remember what it means to stand. One by one, the Valari delegation spoke up. They would stay. They would fight. For the first time in 300 cycles, they would not run. Scout Neela stepped forward, her eyes bright with determination. I want to help with tactical. I've been watching Lieutenant Yuna. I think I can learn. Yuna smiled at her. You'll do fine. Just trust your instincts. The next 48 hours were a blur of preparation. The refugees who could not fight were sent ahead, jumping to safety beyond the sensor range of the Hollow. The Horizon's Edge and a handful of Villari volunteer ships stayed behind. Engineer Hannah worked without sleep, planting charges and programming detonation sequences. Dr. Taiho prepared the medical bay for mass casualties. Sergeant Minho drilled his security teams until they could fight blindfolded, and then, exactly on schedule, the Hollow arrived. 43 warships emerged from hyperspace. They were terrible and beautiful, gleaming silver in the light of distant stars. They scanned the area and found the Horizon's Edge waiting for them. Captain Junho opened a communication channel. His voice echoed across the void. Attention, Hollow Fleet. This is Captain Junho of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. We're not running. We're not hiding. If you want the Villari, you'll have to go through us. The Hollow did not respond with words. They never did. They simply began their advance. The Horizon's Edge turned and flew into the asteroid field. The Hollow followed, their formation perfect, their weapons charging. They're taking the bait, Yuna reported. 20 ships inside the field. 30-35, old Junho said. His hands gripped the arms of his chair. Let them come deeper. The asteroids closed around them. Rocks the size of mountains tumbled past. The Hollow ships adjusted their course, still following, still hunting. 40 ships inside, Yuna said. Her voice was calm, but Korin could see her hands shaking. 41. That's as many as we'll get. Junho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there was no fear. Only peace. Hannah, he said, light them up. Far across the asteroid field, fusion charges ignited. The first explosions were small, almost gentle, but they struck other asteroids, which struck other asteroids, which struck others. A cascade of destruction rippled through the field like fire through dry grass. The Hollow ships tried to retreat, but they were too deep, too surrounded. The asteroids fell on them like the wrath of ancient gods. One ship crumbled, then another, then 10, then 20. The Horizon's Edge was caught in the edge of the storm. The ship screamed as rocks struck its hull. Alarms screamed. Crew members screamed. Everything was fire and chaos and pain, but Yuna kept flying, through impossible gaps. Between crushing walls of stone, her hands moved faster than thought, guided by instinct and love and the desperate need to survive. When the dust cleared, the Hollow Armada was destroyed. 37 warships reduced to burning wreckage. 6 survivors, damaged and broken, fled into hyperspace. And somehow, impossibly, the Horizon's Edge was still there, battered, burned, half its systems offline. But alive, Captain Junho looked around his bridge. Everyone was bleeding. Everyone was exhausted. Everyone was beautiful. We did it, he whispered. Kuorin stood beside him, his old body covered in cuts and bruises. Tears ran down his pale blue face. You saved us, he said. You saved all of us. Junho shook his head. We saved each other. The journey that followed was long. The Horizon's Edge limped through space, guided by Villari star charts, protected by Villari ships. Together, they searched for a new home. 3 months later, they found it. A world with blue oceans and green forests and skies full of gentle clouds. A world where the Villari could finally rest as the refugee fleet descended toward their new home. Korin stood with Junho on the observation deck. The planet glowed beneath them like a jewel. You could stay, Korin said. Your people would be welcome here forever. You are family now. Smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a warm one. Thank you. But there are others out there who need help. Others running in the dark. We have to find them. Why? Corin asked. It was the same question Neela had asked so long ago. And now, finally, he understood the answer. Because that's what people do, Junho said. We find each other. We help each other. We light candles in the darkness until the whole galaxy glows. Okay. They stood together in silence, watching the new world turn beneath them years later. The Valeri built a monument in the center of their first city. It was a statue of a human hand, reaching upward toward the stars. Beneath it, words were carved in 100 languages. The words said, "On the day people arrived, we remembered how to hope, and far across the galaxy, a small ship called the Horizon's Edge continued its journey through the endless dark, looking for strangers, looking for friends, looking for people who needed help, because somewhere out there, someone was always waiting to be found, and people always find each other. That's what people do.